welcome back to another edition of Life in Pictures podcast.
It's been a minute.
We have been noticeably absent for the last few months.
I love that you say noticeably, like people listen to this.
Somebody's listening to it, even if it's just us. So whoever that is, hopefully noticed we were gone. We've had some personal things going on, some work stuff, some life stuff. We missed all of October. We have been watching movies and shows, but I guess we just haven't been talking about them too much. But that's all going to change today.
Yes, because this is the most highly anticipated episode of this podcast. Grab your popcorn, grab a Dr. Pepper or a Pepsi Zero, and buckle up.
Yeah,
or a Pepsi Perfect.
Yeah, you're going to want a Pepsi for sure. Maybe a Pepsi Free. So I'm just going to preface this by saying I've waited for a long time to do this podcast because I wanted to do the movie justice. And I think I could probably just plan that out forever and ever and still feel like I didn't do enough. So I decided this was a good time to just do it. It's the 40th anniversary this year. And this is my favorite movie series of all time. And the first installment of it, Back to the Future.
So happy 40th birthday anniversary of the release of this movie. We're going to get into all the things. So as always, spoiler alert, if you have not seen Back to the Future, then
take a film education course.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if you haven't seen Back to the Future, what's wrong with you? Because I'm pretty sure it's considered a classic movie at this point. So
yes. So if you haven't seen it, then clearly you're not married to Travis McCloud because he's made me watch this movie so many times. So many times.
This is a great movie. You should have seen it by now multiple times. So yes, it is the 40th anniversary this year. This movie came out in 1985. And I just feel like I wanted to make sure I did this right. I don't feel like this needs to be necessarily like a definitive account of it, or, you know, I'm sure there's some things that we're going to miss. We did our best. I wrote up the outline for this episode mostly from memory. And I think I did a pretty good job. I guess if we missed anything, feel free to chime in on our socials, at Life in Pics Pod on Instagram and Life in Pictures Podcast on Facebook. And with that being said, I guess we'll just jump in. Obviously, spoiler alerts, like we were saying. And here we go. So some background info on this movie. Bob Gale, who's the writer of the movie, he got the idea for the movie when he was looking through his father's high school yearbook. And he saw his dad, and he kind of wondered to himself if he would be friends with his father if he knew him in high school. Because, you know, like when you're a kid and you know your parents, like you don't obviously know everything about them. You know them, and like people are different in different parts of their lives, and he was wondering, you know, if they would get along. So that's kind of where the idea came from. There were several early drafts with different versions of these characters. One of them had Marty as a video pirate, which is somebody who like bootlegs movies in a movie theater. And I believe at one point he even had a chimpanzee companion.
What?
Well, I read that Doc was the one with the chimpanzee companion.
Maybe that's what it was.
It was a chimpanzee instead of Einstein.
That might be what it is.
It might have been Marty. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it was Doc.
Okay, so there's that. And also earlier in the drafts of the film, they didn't always have the time machine as a DeLorean. It originally was a refrigerator, and the way that there was like a nuclear blast, and Marty locked himself in a refrigerator to kind of take shelter from the blast, and he traveled through time. Now, obviously, this was kind of problematic from a movie making standpoint because, you know, from the storyline aspect, how many times are there really going to be nuclear explosions? How would he get around anywhere? It's a lot easier if you have your time machine as mobile and that kind of thing. And then I think another concern was they didn't want kids to be locking themselves in refrigerators, so they just decided to make it into a car.
Yeah, that's definitely that would have been really bad.
They figured if they were going to build a time machine, why not do it with some style?
Sure. Style.
Michael J. Fox was always the first choice to play Marty McFly. But he wanted to do it, but he didn't know that they were interested in him because he was busy filming the show Family Ties at the time. And when Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale approached Family Ties, they said, nope, he's with us. You can't have him. Sorry. And didn't even tell Michael J. Fox. So they went with their second choice of Eric Stoltz to play Marty McFly originally. And they shot about half of the movie with him before they kind of just decided it wasn't working out. And I guess Eric kind of had a different approach to the character than what they were envisioning. And so they just went back to the folks at Family Ties and just eventually agreed.
Are those scenes in the bonus footage?
They are not. And I, along with a lot of other fans, have been saying for years that they should release those scenes. That would be cool to just see, what was it like? How did he play the character?
You can find them in places, but I don't think it's officially a thing.
Yeah, it's there's really no officially.
I wonder
released.
how much money they lost filming half a movie and then deciding halfway through this guy's not working out as the star.
Yeah, I mean it can't be cheap,
I mean, I think they made their money back in the end.
Oh,
but...
for sure.
I mean, yeah, they did definitely. I'm actually glad that it's Michael J. Fox for different reasons. I obviously didn't see the Eric Stoltz scenes or the movie because he didn't finish recording it, or filming it, I should say. But I think seeing a picture of Eric Stoltz besides Crispin Glover, he doesn't look like Crispin Glover, but Michael J. Fox kind of does, so he actually kind of looks like his child, for real.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody can kind of agree that Michael J. Fox was the right call. It's hard to imagine anyone else playing Marty. But, that's what happened. They went and they talked to the Family Ties folks again. They came to an agreement. They agreed to let Michael J. Fox play the role of Marty on the condition that if there were ever any conflicts, that Family Ties took priority. So Michael J. Fox actually filmed Family Ties during the day and Back to the Future at night for most of the time. He was basically just working and acting all the time. And he said there are several times where he would kind of forget where he was or what he was doing. And he said that there were times when he was on the set of Family Ties getting ready to enter a scene and he would be freaking out because he's like, oh no, I don't have this camcorder. Where's my camcorder? And then he would say, oh wait, that's Marty McFly's camcorder, not Alex Keaton's camcorder. I don't need it. I'm good.
It's interesting because I feel like now that would never happen because the team behind the actor would make sure that things were in place to balance their schedule.
Yeah, and he was, he said there was basically he would be somebody would take him to his apartment and do everything for him, make his carry him to the limo while he was asleep and stuff, kinds of crazy junk like that. And a lot of this information I'm pulling from the books that Michael J. Fox has written. He's written 3 or 4 of them now. And, so I obviously read those because I'm a fan of his. And he actually has a new book out now, which is called Future Boy, which actually is his experiences making Back to the Future, which I haven't read yet, but I am going to check out. He talked about it in his first book, Lucky Man, which is where I got these stories from. But I would recommend reading his books if you are a fan of his and you haven't checked them out yet. They're very good. But anyway, yeah, that's how he ended up making the movie, or signing on to the movie. and it worked out pretty well. The movie was released in July of 1985 and quickly became a hit at the box office. It was released in July, and it stayed in the top 10 at the box office until December. It grossed $212 million on a budget of $19 million.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good. Now, I was trying to research that, and I couldn't find out if that figure is just for 85 or like to date. I feel like probably to date it would be more than that.
Yeah, it's probably in the...
But I couldn't find definitively anything, because I wanted to do kind of like an adjustment for inflation and stuff.
Well, it's interesting because a budget of $19 million in 1985 is like very big.
Yeah.
That's like Avatar, Jurassic Park. Like, did they know making this film that it was going to be a hit?
No, they had no idea. I mean, I think, and this is another thing he talked about in his book. I think he was saying that like once it premiered and it, was successful and everything, they had called him to tell him, hey, it's going well. And he was expecting them to be calling him to say, oh, it didn't work out. And he said something to the effect of like, oh, okay, I'll try to do better next time. And then,
oh, wow.
Then he realized what they were saying.
So there was actually trouble having this film made, right?
There was, yeah. So they, Zemeckis and Gale, they had this screenplay. They shopped it around Hollywood. And a lot of the studios said that, this is too clean of a movie. It's not edgy enough. Maybe try Disney. And they took it to Disney, and Disney said, this is too edgy for us. We can't make this movie either. And so it sort of bounced around for a little while. And then I think Zemeckis had a hit with Romancing the Stone. I'm trying to remember how this worked. Because some of these movies were before my time. This movie came out when I was 1 year old. So I obviously am not really super knowledgeable on the popular movies of the day. But I know he did Romancing the Stone before this, and it was either like a bomb or it was really good, and that's what propelled them to take another look at this. But I know like some of the studios were kind of gun shy because Zemeckis hadn't really had any hits yet, and some of the ones he did like didn't do very well. And I know Romancing the Stone was pre Back to the Future. I don't remember if that was the one that finally got him through the door or if it was the other way around. But anyway, he finally they got it made by Universal in the end, and the rest is history, as they say.
So, Colin, why don't you tell us a little bit about the plot of this movie?
Okay, so Marty McFly, he's just like a normal teenager in 1985. And the opening scene, you hear a bunch of... you hear clocks ticking, and there's a bunch of them. And then, this kid comes in the door, and that's Marty McFly. And he has a skateboard, so he slides it across the room, and he hits a plutonium case, which is foreshadowing. And then he gets to this giant like amplifier for a guitar, and he strums it once, and everything just breaks. And then his scientist friend, Dr. Emmett Brown, calls him, and he's like, can you meet me at 1:15 in the morning? I need to show you something. And so the opening scene, then all the clocks go off, and they say 8 o'clock. And Doc is like, are those my clocks? And he says yes. And he says it's 8 o'clock. And Doc says they're 25 minutes slow. And then Marty says he's late for school. And then that's where the song that's most prominently featured throughout the movie, The Power of Love, starts playing. And then he goes to school, and he's late. And I think he's the principal. Principal Strickland catches him, and he's tardy for like the 4th time or something. And then I'm not gonna go through like all the specific details, but like he gets rejected from his school's Battle of the Bands, and then eventually 1:15 rolls around. He goes to this mall with nobody there. In the parking lot, he sees the van that Doc has. And then the van slowly opens up and a car comes out, and it's a DeLorean, but it's customized. So Marty's confused, and then Doc tells him when it gets to 88 miles per hour, some crazy stuff is going to happen. And then it looks like it disintegrates right in front of him. And then it's revealed that the car was a time machine. And so then it runs on plutonium, which is why the plutonium case was foreshadowing. And then like Doc explains that he stole it from terrorists, and the terrorists come after him and kill him. And then Marty almost gets killed, but luckily the gun misfires, and he gets in the time machine and accidentally turns on the time circuits, which is what makes it actually go back in time. And like he goes up to 88, and then he gets transported to 1955. And
all right,
but he didn't.
Thank you. I'm going to let Daddy take over. We're going to do like just a quick synopsis. You did a really good job of telling us the beginning part.
All right, so basically, like you're saying, he's a typical teenager. He's maybe not doing too well in school. Things aren't going too well for him. He wants to go on this trip with his girlfriend, and he can't borrow the car because his dad let his supervisor borrow it, and he crashed it, and his dad won't stand up to the supervisor. And, his life isn't going too well. And then he goes to meet Doc Brown at the mall like he asked him. He accidentally goes back in time. And then he also accidentally prevents his parents from meeting, which jeopardizes his own existence, which kind of sets up the whole point of the movie, is that he then has to work to correct that course to get his parents to meet and get their trajectory back on track so that he can exist and that he can go back to the future to his normal life. So, I mean, like we were saying, if you are listening to this, hopefully you've seen this movie before and you kind of are familiar with it. But if not, that's kind of the general overview of what happens in the movie. So now I think it's probably, since we got all that out of the way, what else can we say that's sort of background info? If you if you haven't seen it again and you want to watch it, it's actually all three of them I think are on Netflix now.
It's on Disney Plus, I think.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I thought they just put them on Netflix like recently.
Maybe they did, but I'm pretty sure that was
The second one is definitely on Netflix.
For the 40th. So you can watch them there.
The point is they're on lots of streaming platforms.
There's a new 4K box set for the 40th. There's lots of places you can see them.
We should talk about who's in the movie, huh?
Yes. So obviously, some of the main cast members, you have Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly. You have Crispin Glover as George McFly. You have Leah Thompson as Lorraine Baines McFly. You have
Tom Wilson as Biff.
Tom Wilson as Biff. You have
Christopher
Lloyd as Doc Brown. Wendy Jo Sperber as, what's his sister's name again?
Linda. That's not her name.
Oh,
I think I just made that up.
I don't know. Anyways,
Claudia Wells as Jennifer.
Claudia Wells as Jennifer, who was recast by Elizabeth Shue for the second and third one. Anyway, those are kind of the big ones. I mean, you can check who's in it, but a lot of great actors there. And so I was just going to talk about just kind of our, like we usually do, our favorite scenes, trivia, stuff like that.
I love trivia. Give me some trivia.
All right. So,
I looked it up. I was right. His sister's name is Linda.
There you go, Linda. So, and then his brother's name is Dave, and he's played by, the last name is McClure, I think. I forget what the first name is of that guy. But anyways, it's not you can find that out. It's not that important. Okay, so Ronald Reagan used the line, "Where we're going, we don't need roads," in one of his presidential addresses. Which I thought was pretty cool.
What was he referring to?
just like where the country's going, like that where our future is so bright kind of thing.
Oh. Our future's so bright, you're gonna need shades.
Yeah. That's also a popular song from the 80s. I think the 80s. Anyways. Okay, so a lot of people, some people have noticed this in the movie, but the mall that he goes to meet Doc Brown in is called the Twin Pines Mall. And it's called the Twin Pines Mall because before it was a mall, way back in the 50s, it was a farm. And the guy that owned the farm, Peabody, was trying to breed pine trees. Well, when Marty goes back in time, he accidentally runs over one of those pine trees. So when he comes back, it's just Lone Pine Mall.
Get it? Because he ran over the trees and there's not two, there's just one.
Yeah, which I noticed a long time ago. But, now a lot of clickbait sites like to put that in there with a bunch of other stupid facts that you really should have noticed by now if you've seen the movie. But a lot of them are like, ooh, here's something you never knew about Back to the Future. The time machine is a car.
Okay, but to be fair, not everybody has seen it as many times as you.
I'm just saying, a lot of the things... That's one of the things that bugged me about being a big fan of this movie. It hasn't happened so much anymore since the future that was depicted in this series is now 10 years in the past. But growing up, it was 30 years away when the movie came out. And then, even when I was older, like every freaking day on social media, once that came out, somebody would post, oh, today's the day they went to in Back to the Future. And it's like, no, it wasn't, because it was like 2010 or something. I'm like, nobody went anywhere in 2010 in this movie. There's 1885, 1955, 1985, and 2015.
I'm really glad 2015 has passed because he was really angry for a lot of years.
It's just crazy that there's already enough misinformation on Facebook. We don't need that adding to it.
Is it possible they were just referring to the day and not the year?
No, it's possible they're just stupid and they want people to click on their stupid memes that don't make any sense. And then all my dumb friends share it too. Like, oh, look, I saw the thing and it must be true because it's on the internet. I'm like, watch the movie. Seriously, just watch the movie. It's not that hard.
Interesting.
But anyway, we're getting off track. So,
yeah.
What else?
George laughs at Marty in the diner.
Yeah, this was something that I noticed yesterday. So yesterday, Colin and I went to go see this in the movie theater because it has been re-released for the 40th anniversary. And I think this is like my 4th or 5th time seeing it in the theater. I didn't see it in the theater when it originally came out because, like I said, I was only 1 year old. But I noticed that when Biff and his gang are picking on, first they're picking on George, and then they kind of pick on Marty a little bit, and then George laughs at him along with him, like he's trying to fit in with the gang.
I think he thinks they're friends.
No, but because
I especially we've seen the Broadway show, and I feel like they did a better job in the Broadway show of showing that George thinks that they're heckling him because they're friends. So I think that's why he's laughing at Marty, because he thinks that they're picking on Marty and that his friends are, but they're not actually friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That was a detail I'd never noticed before. Another thing that I think I had noticed this before, but I still think it's kind of cool, is when Marty first arrives in Hill Valley Square and they show the marquee of the theater and they have Ronald Reagan on the marquee of the theater, which is, in Marty's time, he's the president of the United States. Now he's gone back and it's, he's acting in this movie. And the town is all, in 1985, it's kind of run down. And in 1955, it's shiny and new. And in 1985, that theater is showing some questionable titles. On the marquee in 1985, it's Orgy American Style. And when he goes to 1955, it's this Ronald Reagan movie, And then one of them's a church. And and then the clock tower works. And he's just like, oh my gosh, what happened here? I'm in the 50s. This is crazy. So that was pretty neat. The guitar that Marty plays at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance actually did not exist in 1955. It's a Gibson ES 345, which I believe was released in 1959. And that's another thing that I knew before this year because I play the guitar and I always wanted one of those guitars. And that's another stupid thing on Facebook that a lot of people are doing now is because like Gibson will make a post that because they made these guitars for the anniversary and they straight up say in the post, so this guitar didn't exist till 1959, but we took some creative liberties and we're calling this one in 1955. And it never fails. Always the first comment is some jackass like, oh, it didn't exist in 1955. You're stupid. Like they literally said that in the post. You can't even read the post when it's right in front of you, much less watch the movie that it comes from. So like, I shouldn't be surprised. But anyway, people don't pay attention.
Did you know that Huey Lewis makes a cameo in the movie?
I did. He makes a cameo as the judge for the Battle of the Bands that Marty's band, the Pinheads, gets rejected from. And he tells Marty that he's afraid they're just too darn loud.
So for those of you that don't know, Huey Lewis, he is the person that sings The Power of Love, which is the featured song of the movie.
Yep. And that's the song that they're playing that he says is too darn loud. So it's funny. Like,
yeah.
That was something I didn't realize for a long time that was Huey Lewis telling him that. I think I found that out like a little while ago. But I always thought that was interesting. One thing I also noticed, I've noticed this before, but I happened to notice it yesterday too, was that Marty has the poster for the album Sports in his room, which is Huey Lewis's album, which means Huey Lewis exists in that universe.
Yeah.
So it must be kind of eerie to be like, I wonder if like Marty, the character Marty, looked at the character of that judge and was like, you look exactly like Huey Lewis, or like, you know.
Maybe.
I don't know. I also noticed that Marty had a Gibson amplifier in his room and an Ibanez Roadstar guitar, which is the one he played at the audition. I didn't notice the Gibson amp before. I noticed it yesterday.
Interesting.
What did you notice anything, Colin, yesterday?
Not in his room. I wasn't really paying attention to his room. I never really do in that scene. It's just kind of like he wakes up. That's really all.
Well, all right. I also noticed. I think this is the case that in 1985 when they sort of show you his home life and his parents and what they're like and everything, George and Dave are watching Jackie Gleason. And I'm pretty sure that's the same episode that they're watching in 1955 when he goes to his mom's house.
So they're like stuck in the past.
Yeah.
The glory days.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. This is something I noticed a long time ago that a lot of times you don't see too much on those little clickbait articles. But when Marty and Jennifer are walking after the audition and she's telling him he should send his demo tape and everything, there's a car that's parked and the license plate on it says for Mary, and that's referring to Mary Radford, who was the personal assistant to the second unit director Frank Marshall. And I always thought that was kind of cool. A lot of people like, it's cool to watch this movie because if you look in the background and you look at all kinds of other things, you'll notice something new every time you watch it. There's all kinds of little Easter eggs that you won't pick up if you just casually pay attention to it.
I feel like that could be true of a lot of movies, right? Like if you're really diving in and paying attention, like there's a lot of things like that in there that are Easter eggs or for the people that made the movie. But yeah, that's always interesting to find those out when it's a movie you really like.
This was, what were you saying, Colin?
I was just gonna talk about stuff that I noticed yesterday, but
go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so I noticed two things yesterday when I was watching it. The first one, I might just be stupid and I noticed it late, but when I was watching it yesterday, the opening scene with all the clocks, there's one where there's one of the clocks, there's a little guy hanging from one of the hands. which is, I think it's supposed to be foreshadowing to the end of the movie, or like towards the end of the movie where he's hanging off the clock tower.
Oh.
Yep.
And there's another thing I noticed when Doc is on the top of the clock tower and Marty's telling him about how he gets shot. He doesn't get to say the word shot, and when he says it, it gets cut off by a bell ringing. And I think the bell is supposed to be like a funeral bell, like when they ring the bell when somebody dies.
That could be. I noticed the first time I noticed the guy hanging off the clock was when the DVD first came out. And I thought it was one of those little like hidden features or something. They used to have these things in DVDs sometimes where they would show something on the screen, and if you hit a button, it would take you to some bonus feature. And I thought that's what it was. And I was hitting the button, nothing was happening. And I was like, has that been there this whole time? I heard it was like a reference to some other, like some older movie from like the 30s.
Yeah,
or something.
there is a scene in, I don't know what movie it's from, but there's this black and white movie with, I don't know the actor's name, but there's like a clock, and it's like the whole clock is like facing down, like it's falling down, and a guy's hanging off of it.
Yeah. So I think it's probably that, and then also obviously later on in the movie, Doc is hanging off of the tower from the clock.
But anyway, those are two things that I noticed this time.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I've known this for a little bit, but when he goes back to 1985, there's a homeless man sleeping on a bench, and the bench just says California Raisins on it. And the California Raisins, they had a whole campaign in the 80s that was pretty popular where they had these animated raisins that would dance around and stuff. And I guess the story behind that is somebody had promised somebody else product placement for California Raisins, and they told them that, oh yeah, this is going to be just like how Reese's Pieces was in E.T. and it's going to be great. And apparently like Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale were like, we didn't agree to that. What is that? Like, I guess we can put this on a bench if they want. So that's how that ended up there.
Everybody in the movie just going around.
I actually want to talk about that scene.
Yeah.
The homeless man sleeping on it, his name's Red, according to Marty. Or Rhett or something. And in 1955, it says re-elect Mayor Rhett Thomas, or maybe Red Thomas, I don't know. But I think that the homeless man is supposed to be like him. Like, I think he was the mayor in 1955, and then he was just homeless in 1985.
See, now that was a good catch, but they actually looked that up, and according to Bob Gale, they're not the same character.
Oh.
But I didn't really think about that before, but that is a good catch associating the two. But I think if he was like a fully grown man, not old man, but like older man in 1955, he wouldn't have been as young as the guy Red in 1985 is.
Yeah, I just noticed that they were like the same name, so I thought maybe they were connected.
Yeah.
That's a good thought. I would have probably thought that too if I would have realized.
I noticed yesterday that apparently gas was $1.09 in 1985. Those were the days.
Those were the days.
Something that I think is interesting is several of the locations in this movie are like actual places. Like Marty's house, somebody lives in that house. It's like a real house. Same with Doc's house. Same with George's house. Same with Lorraine's house. Hill Valley High School is actually a real high school, but I mean, it's called Whittier High School, but it's a real high school in California. And the school auditorium where they have the Enchantment Under the Sea dance is not at the high school. It's actually at a church. But some of these places you can actually go to and see, and like the church where they had the dance actually puts on an Enchantment Under the Sea dance that they charge admission to. I don't know if it's an annual thing or if it's just every once in a while or how that works, but I thought that was kind of cool. Like some of these things, I'm like, man, if I was closer to California, I'd probably go check this out. And then obviously, in addition to, you can see where they shot it on the back lot at Universal as well. The Hill Valley Square is a very famous set that's in several other movies.
And they just had that event at Universal this spring. The
Universal Fan Fest, which I really wanted to go to, but it just didn't work out, where they had the square all decorated like it was in Back to the Future for the 40th anniversary, and you could go and you could walk around the square, and they had performances of Johnny B. Good, and they had the actors, not the actors from the movie, but like, they had actors walking around as those characters that you could interact with, and merchandise and special food and stuff. It was really cool. But the timing just didn't work out for us to go see it. So I'm hoping they maybe do that again at some point, because that would be really cool.
Speaking of Universal and Back to the Future, there was a ride at, I don't know if it was every single Universal theme park, but at least Hollywood and Orlando had a
They had it in Japan also.
They do? They did have it in Japan?
Yeah.
Okay, so Japan, Hollywood, and Orlando all had a Back to the Future ride, and I don't know, I think they all opened at different times, but I think the one in Orlando opened in 1991, and then it closed in 2000. They all closed in 2007.
No,
I don't know.
That's not true. The one in Japan stayed open later.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought they all closed in 2007.
Yeah. That was
Hollywood
a great ride,
and
too.
Orlando both closed in 2007.
Yeah. To make way for The Simpsons.
Which I hate that ride.
I like The Simpsons. The ride's kind of whatever. But, I kind of wish that they didn't have to get rid of Back to the Future. Although I kind of understand why they did it. Because I guess they were at the point where they either needed to pay a bunch of money to fix the ride, or they could pay the same amount of money to get a new ride. And by 2007, Back to the Future was, kind of aging. And, I get it, but it's still, just as a fan, I kind of wish there was more Back to the Future.
I think they also, they were trying to draw in more crowds.
Yeah.
Because they're usually, towards the end there,
No,
screens were shot.
Yeah, I understand it from, a business perspective. I'm just saying from a fan perspective, I kind of wish there was a little more representation in the parks, but I understand.
They still have a little bit of Back to the Future stuff in the parks. There's a model DeLorean in the train there, but that's about. And Doc Brown walks around.
I also feel like they could, that Jimmy Fallon thing. That could be a Back to the Future ride.
Yeah, or Fast and Furious. That's a terrible ride.
Yeah, there's some there's opportunities for reimagining what that could look like.
Or maybe they don't have to have every Harry Potter freaking everything all over the place when Harry Potter's not even a Universal movie.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Fast and Furious is the best ride at Universal.
Fast and Furious is an Xbox game that you ride
Colin
through.
loves that ride, and we can't figure out why.
But going back to the people's houses being real, I kind of feel bad for some of these people because, you see other people post it online, and they're like, oh, I went to Marty's house today, and here's the address. Go check it out. And I'm like, that's somebody's house, man. So I don't know if, they get permission from these people, but maybe, when they went there, the people were like, it's fine, go ahead. I don't know, but to me, it just seems like... I mean, I feel like on the one hand, you probably, if you bought that house, you probably sort of, expect it a little bit. But on the other hand, it's sort of it's still somebody's house, dude. You don't need to be posting their address on the internet, I don't know. That's kind of the way that I view it, but I've never been to any of those locations or met the owners or anything like that. So maybe they're cool with it and they had some kind of interaction. I don't know. But I think there are, I don't know if there's official tours you can take, but you can definitely, drive around to some of these places and see them yourself in real life. And I always thought that was really cool, not just in this movie, but just in movies in general where they film them in real places and you can go and say, oh, this is, some location from a movie I really like.
Yep. Our friend Stephanie lives in New York, and she's taken us around to see the Ghostbusters firehouse, the Friends apartment, Carrie's apartment from Sex and the City. So New York is another one of those places where a lot of the locations are real.
Yeah, New York and LA obviously, are going to have a lot of that kind of stuff because that's where a lot of, Hollywood, of course, where they make a lot of movies, but New York as well. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes they make things in Hollywood that are set in New York and vice versa, Yeah,
that's true too. Yeah.
So you never really know.
So apparently, originally the movie was not going to be named Back to the Future. It was going to be named Spaceman from Pluto.
I don't know if it was ever going to be named that, but at one point, Sid Sheinberg, who was the head of the studio, was saying that they should call it that. He wanted to call it that. And at the time, I think Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, they didn't really have the influence to be able to say, like, yeah, we're not doing that. And so they were like, oh, no, what are we going to do? We can't call this movie Spaceman from Pluto. Nobody's going to come see it. And apparently Steven Spielberg, who produced the movie, was able to kind of rescue them from that. And his solution to it was he sent a memo to Sid that said, oh, thank you so much for that joke. That was hilarious. We all got a great laugh out of it. And I guess Sid was too proud to admit that he wasn't joking. So they were allowed to call it Back to the Future. But had Spielberg not been able to step in like that, it might have been called Spaceman from Pluto. And
Which doesn't make any sense. It has nothing to do with the movie.
Apparently, the reason he wanted to call it that was from the scene where Marty tells George he's Darth Vader. He wanted him to say, I'm the spaceman from Pluto or something. It's like, that's really random, though. Like, that one scene you want to hinge the whole movie on. Like,
yeah, that's dumb.
Yeah. So it's a good thing that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it would have been based on, like, since he went back and the first people he saw thought he was from Pluto.
I guess that too, yeah. But I don't know. I think we can all agree Back to the Future is a better title for this.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So keep going. I'm sorry.
The DeLorean speedometer had to be modified because that car doesn't actually go up to 88 miles per hour. So the one you see in the movie isn't the actual speedometer from the car.
What does the car go up to?
I don't know, but
like
apparently it was. Yeah, I guess
it goes up to 15 miles per hour.
No.
15. I think it goes faster than that, but yeah, that's kind of interesting. This is something that I kind of noticed after a while of watching these movies, but like he sees this like 4x4 truck in the beginning that he thinks is really cool, and then he ends up getting it in the end. And the dealership is Statler Toyota, and Statler Toyota ends up kind of being a theme throughout the whole trilogy. Like even in the third one where they go to the Old West, there's like Honest Joe Statler selling horses,
yeah,
which was pretty cool. Like it took me a little while to pick up on that, but that's kind of neat.
I think there's a lot of that kind of like woven stuff throughout the trilogy.
Yeah. And speaking of that, of getting the truck in the end and his parents being successful in the end and everything, apparently Crispin Glover didn't like the ending. He said that he felt that financial success shouldn't have been the reward that they got in the end. And I think that he was kind of at odds with the directors, and he wasn't in the other two movies. And there's sort of like a different version of events here. They said that, he wanted some kind of ridiculous salary, and they said, we want to have you here, but, we can't pay you that much money. That's just crazy. And he says that, he thought he was getting paid too low. So he, I don't know what figures were thrown around or whatever, but he eventually ended up suing them because they used a plaster mold of his face from the first one to make prosthetics for Jeffrey Wiseman, who played George McFly in the second movie, without his authorization. And they also used footage of Crispin Glover from the first movie without his authorization. So he actually ended up getting money for it, even though he wasn't in the movie.
Well, there you go.
So yeah, that was kind of a notable thing. I guess it's sort of related to the first one here. But anyway, that's a lot of the trivia.
Yeah.
So I guess now we can kind of move on to some of the notable scenes. Do you have any favorites or anything that interests you from the...
I always think it's funny when Lorraine is like calling him Calvin.
Yeah.
Because she saw in his underwear that it said Calvin Klein, so she thought that was his name.
Yeah.
Which obviously Calvin Klein is a designer, but also like creepy. Why are you looking in his underwear? That whole thing is weird to me. The like Lorraine having a crush on Marty.
Here's another thing that I've had several people make that observation to me before. And I see where they're coming from, but I also feel like that's a situation where like they're not paying close enough attention to this movie because she doesn't know that's her son.
No, I get that. I get that. Like it was the.
It's following the path of what. Yeah.
Hero,
so
right?
as far as she knows, he's just some guy that showed up that that has qualities that she likes, and he does know that it's his mom, and that's why he's avoidant of it. Like right. He doesn't, it would be creepy if he was like, "Oh yeah, come on over,"
But also,
but like he tries to get away from it.
Like he gets knocked out by the car, right? Why would her parents be like, "Yeah, let's put this strange boy that you've never met before in your life in your bed, and why don't you take his pants off while you're at it?" Like,
yeah, no, some of that's kind of weird, but and then it's like, he's trying to get away from it. And then when they go to the dance, when she kisses him, then immediately, like the universe or whatever, that there's that kind of unseen force that's like, you aren't supposed to do this. And she immediately is like, I don't know what it is, but this feels wrong. And he's like, I know what it is, and I know why it's wrong, and that's why I don't want to do it. And she doesn't want to do it anymore either. That's another one of those things where, like, I feel like it would be creepy if, like, she kissed him and then she was like, "Oh yeah, let's keep going," and then it would be like, "What?" But like, I think they handled that part of the story just fine, and like a lot of people use that as a criticism, but I always feel like you probably aren't really paying that close of attention to it. And I also kind of feel like it's probably another one of those those situations where some dumbass wrote it on Facebook and said, "Oh look, this happened," and then a bunch of other dumbasses were like, "Yeah, what's that about?" And so now instead of actually watching the movie and figuring it out for themselves, they just, I thought on Facebook, so it's true. Mm. But anyways, what other scenes interest you in that movie?
I like the scene at the dance when Marty's playing the song. What's the song called?
Earth Angel or Johnny Be Good?
Johnny Be Good.
Yeah.
And Marvin calls his cousin Chuck.
Yeah.
And says, "This is the sound you've been looking for."
Yeah. So he kind of invents Johnny Be Good.
Yeah.
Even though, it's a Chuck Berry song.
It's pretty cool.
Now that's obviously been one of my favorite scenes because I'm a guitar player, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why I wanted to play guitar. Not the only reason, but definitely had an influence on me, as it did on a lot of other guitar players that started out around that time, or maybe inspired them to start playing the guitar. And they actually, this year, they recently released a replica version of that guitar, and it's sold out instantly. They had two versions of it. One's the Gibson version, which is supposed to be like an exact replica, and the other one's an Epiphone version, which is a much cheaper version. And the Gibson one was priced at $20,000, and they sold all of them. They only made 88. They sold every single one of them. So I think that kind of speaks to the impact that this movie, 40 years later, they can do these kind of things where they release merchandise that flies off the shelves,
Yeah.
It wasn't like this was just some movie that came out 40 years ago and nobody cares anymore,
So, Travis, what are your favorite scenes?
Well, obviously that one with Johnny Be Good. I liked what Colin was talking about in the beginning where he hooks up to that giant amp. And I remember when I was a kid, I used to act that out. Like at my preschool, they had one of those kitchen play sets, and they had the fake stove with the knobs on it, and I used to turn those knobs pretending it was the knobs on the amp in the beginning of the movie. Huh. That was always really cool. Like I was talking about before, I like when he arrives in the 50s and he's sort of figuring out what's happening, and
yeah.
And I just really like this movie where it's sort of I don't know, something relatable about being in a situation where you have to do something, you're out to do something, you're out to prove something, and and it's like, nobody believes you, or you have to work really hard to get somebody to believe in you and help you, and you're like, I know this is gonna sound crazy, but like, this is what's happening, and it's just a nice story. I don't know. Talked about Lorraine's crush on Marty. I like when he goes back to the diner in the 50s, and the guy says, well, are you going to order something? And he says, yeah, well, give me a tab. He says, well, I can't give you a tab unless you order something. So, well, give me a Pepsi free. If you want a Pepsi, you're going to pay for it. Because, in the 50s, they didn't have tab, and they didn't have Pepsi free, and some of that stuff. Marty invented skateboarding, which was pretty cool. I think that made me want to be a skater on a certain level. And I'm not going to say that I'm not going to try to brag about anything too much, but if I had to make an observation, I think I became a much better guitar player than I did a skateboarder.
I concur.
I liked George standing up to Biff, even though like he thought that, because they had tried to craft it in such a way that, he's like, okay, we have this all planned out, and we're going to act it out, and I'm going to pretend to abuse Lorraine, and you're going to swoop in and save her. And George, even though, he came in and it turned out it was Biff, he stood up to him anyway. And like, that was a really cool scene. I liked after that scene when they're getting ready to drive back, and Marty tells Doc that George never stood up to Biff before, and Doc is like, ever? And he's like, no. And he's like, what? And he's like, oh, never mind. And then, when he gets back, as a result of him standing up to him, like, Biff isn't his supervisor anymore, and he's not this spineless guy that has his car getting wrecked, and, they have more money and they're doing better and stuff. So that was kind of cool. It was like a little foreshadowing. And I liked when Marty played Van Halen for George and told him if he didn't take his mom to the dance, he was going to melt his brain. What about you, Colin? Anything that stood out to you?
Yeah, I want to talk about one particular scene. The scene where they eat dinner in the 50s, and he meets his Uncle Joey as a baby, and he's like, you better get used to these bars.
Yeah.
Because his uncle's in prison.
Yeah, they're always making him a cake, because he's going to get out this time.
And like kind of the same scene. So I need to provide context for what I'm about to say. So I have a friend that's autistic, and he has struggles learning things. So like he says some stupid stuff sometimes, which isn't his fault, but that's what happens. And like he didn't know in 8th grade who John F. Kennedy was. And so I always think it's funny when Lorraine's dad is like, who the H is John F. Kennedy? Because it just reminds me of him.
Yeah, that is pretty funny.
I think also the scene like when they're trying, like the lightning storm is happening, because I feel like there's so much suspense in that scene. Like everything is going wrong, and he has like an extremely short amount of time to get it right, or else he's stuck in the 50s.
Yeah.
Those are probably like my most notable scenes.
And this isn't really like a scene in the movie, but I also, like I do with some of these other movies, it's really cool to think that like there's a movie that I grew up watching that I can show my kids and they can enjoy it the same way that I've enjoyed it all of these years. It's kind of a timeless movie in a way. I mean, it's a little dated because there's 80s references and stuff, but I mean, the story at its core,
Did your dad like this movie?
Yeah. And I mean, obviously he was older when it came out, but like, yeah, like my family really liked it growing up, and now my kids enjoy it as well. And I just think that's really cool. But
except the one person who isn't on today's episode.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. So let's talk about some of the effects that this movie had after it came out.
So this movie was actually not originally intended to be a trilogy. It was just going to be one movie, and the to be continued that comes at the end was actually not in the theatrical release. It was added in the home video version.
Yeah. And they've said that if they had intended to make it a trilogy, they wouldn't have put Jennifer in the car at the end, because that ended up being kind of a pain for them to write into the sequel. It would have been a lot easier to write if we didn't have her in the car.
Yeah.
They said. Well, like we were saying, it is a trilogy, and there were 2 sequels to this film, and they filmed both of them at the same time. And then they filmed one big long movie and then cut it up into 2 movies. They were released in 1989 and 1990, which was 4 and 5 years after the original one that came out.
Yeah.
There was an animated TV series that came out that used to air on Saturday mornings, mostly focused on Doc. Christopher Lloyd was actually in it as live action in the beginning, and he would set it up as Doc Brown, and then they would show you.
I feel like I might have watched this.
Yeah. It was pretty good. I mean, I don't know how many of them I've actually seen, but I have the whole series because it was part of the box set that came out for the 30th anniversary back in 2015. And I've seen a few of those episodes. But it's available around some places.
Colin, tell us about the video games.
Okay, so it had several video games. There was one from, I don't know the exact year it released, but it released kind of a while ago. It was either for the NES or the SNES, and it was like, I think a lot of people agree that it was like horrible.
Yeah, there definitely was one there was actually more than one on the NES, because there was Back to the Future, and then there was Back to the Future 2 and 3.
Oh, okay.
They were not very good.
The more recent ones, there's Back to the Future of the game, which is, I think it was by Telltale.
Yep.
There was...
That was in 2010.
That was released in 2010. It had a level pack in Lego Dimensions, which was released in 2015.
Yeah, which was one of the main reasons I wanted to try
there you go.
Lego Dimensions.
Yeah. It was released in 2015. That's funny.
Yep.
And there's also a bonus level that you have to do some secret objectives to get to in the game Funko Fusion, which was released last year in 2024.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
It's another reason why I wanted to try that game. That and the Jaws level.
So we talked a little bit about the theme park rides at Universal. The ride at Universal Studios in Orlando was open from 91 to 2007. But now on City Walk, they have this escape game. And one of the escape games is Back to the Future themed, which we did. And it was really fun.
Yeah, which I think is another testament to like the impact of this movie. Because when did that escape room was built? It's been a few years now.
2022.
Let's say 2022.
Something like that.
So, I mean, that's like all these years. Yeah, 35 years later or whatever. And, when they're like, oh, we need a theme for this room, we're going to make it Back to the Future because people will come and do that.
They have 2 themed rooms there at this escape place. One is Back to the Future, the other is Jurassic World.
Yeah.
So those are kind of like very classic movies. It's a little bit different than a traditional escape game in that, like, you could do the same escape room multiple times and get like different outcomes because there's multiple games within each room. And it's pretty cool because a lot of it was sets from the movies.
That was one of my favorite part, is it almost was like going into the movie to a certain extent. And I remember like when one of them was like the Cafe 80s and you went in there and it was really cool, surreal to be in that atmosphere. And one of them was the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, and you're on the stage and they have the instruments and everything and they have the phone that you got to pick up. And I was like, when it was time to go to the next room, I was just like, I could just hang out here for a while. I want to explore
Travis
this
really
set.
wanted to take pictures, but no phones were allowed.
Yeah, they wouldn't let you take any pictures of the room, which I understand because they don't want the solutions getting out there. But I was just like, I want to take a picture of everything in here.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do it. What did you think of the room, Colin?
I thought it was really cool. Some of the rooms were kind of like annoying to solve though, and some of them we didn't even solve at all. Like it just the time ended for that room.
Some of them we solved early just because we didn't even need the clues. We just knew the answers, you know.
Yeah, because we seen the movie.
Because we were such
so
big fans of the movie.
But yeah, some of the like a lot of the they were all very well themed. I like the storyline, the room itself, very well themed. Some of the rooms were annoying to solve though, like that dance one, really well themed, freaking annoying to solve. Yeah. The room where it's Biff's hotel, great storyline where your host becomes like corrupted now because it's like the bad 2015. Great room, annoying puzzle to solve. I really like the final room though, where Biff made the time on the clock wrong, and you have to like change it. You could see Doc's like silhouette like hanging.
Yeah.
Like that was probably my favorite room.
I would definitely recommend it if you haven't gone and you're in the Orlando area or you're planning to go to Universal anytime soon. It's a fun experience.
For sure. Yeah. Well, we have talked a lot about Back to the Future, and I bet you could talk another 2 hours if we let you.
I probably could, but in the interest of time, I guess we can cut it off here. Do you guys have anything that you want to end with?
No, I'm glad that you got to finally do this episode. This has been a long time coming. Travis loves this movie. Every time it's in the theater, he wants to see it. He just got the Epiphone version of the new guitar. Unfortunately, we couldn't spring for the $20,000 Gibson, but we did get you the Epiphone one nonetheless. And where we're going, we don't need roads.
Sure. Okay, well, hope everybody.
So mean. I was gonna say that.
All right, well, we said it. Hope everybody has enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.